YouTube, how the heck you doing? This is Corey here with Watcher Realms. Now we are going to first see what we got from this demon chest. Actually, let's kind of backtrack a little bit. So where we currently stand, we are number 2, right? We went against Crimson Peak, and then we went against Destin's Guild Rising Horde. Won both of them, so we go against Mad, which is going to be cool. Other version of us is somewhere here. There we go. Other version of us is right here. They just unfortunately lost to Matt a second ago, so they'll be back up again. It is what it is, right? So let's go ahead and get into what we're doing. First thing is, let's see if we get any good demons from this chest. I swear to God, I have yet to ever get something good from this, besides the Grotesque Fiend. Whatever. Whatever, we'll take it, right? That basically completes my whole trifecta of the Frost faction. Mine is Glacius, because I will probably never get one of these demon captains. That's gonna be a separate video. Good God, I hate these chests. It's so stupid. But let's go ahead and get into what I'm showcasing. So the whole point of this series that I'm going to start doing is really like guild v guild foundations, right? Like the main strategies that we use and why we use them and what we look out for and timings and things like this. Just so the beginner to like average like guild v guild player understands like what to look for, so they can avoid some of the like really common pitfalls and losses that they would experience. So let's go ahead and get straight to it. Now, naturally, I have some decent demon levels. I have some decent BP. It could be much higher, I know. But YouTube, super quick interruption, my bad, right? But Moonton and Small One are currently partnering to go ahead and provide us with some really good packs, in my opinion. The first one is going to be the bonus bundle, which allows you to get some rare summoning crystals, about $4.50 roughly. But the one that I'm like actually really looking forward to, actually there's kind of two, but the Gear Raid 2 pack bundle, the reason why is because specifically you have the ability to go ahead and get like a A1 King Hearts, for example, and if I remember 100% correctly, you can even go and get an Ardea in this particular pack, and I personally really still rate Ardeas like really high in terms of strength, so that's definitely one of the packs that you might want to consider getting. And then secondly, right, they have some really good overall packs for summoning. They have the rare summoning crystals, 30, you get a legendary summoning crystal, which is kind of good because it allows you to set up for both limited banners and eventual nascent banners, because nations tend to be on divines right now. But if you're not really that interested in going ahead and dropping money for rare summoning crystals, they also have the ancient summoning crystal bundle, which is going to give you about 23, and then you also have 200 gold, which is not that crazy, but then you also get some diamonds, which you can go ahead and convert for stamina. Like if you're a good player, smart player, go ahead and get those diamonds, convert them into stamina, and then you run some Gear Raid 2, right? But no, I'm just joking. But overall, I would definitely go ahead and consider getting some of these packs if you are a spender. If you're not a spender, that's more than fine. You don't have to, but if you're interested, use the link in the description below. We're going to do swarming today, right? So a couple of things is typically you go and swarm nightmare teams, especially if they're using like a Wukong, because Wukong has some really weird targeting when it comes to the skeletons that are spawned by the Necros. And then occasionally Ymrit can deal a substantial amount of damage and deal with the swarming quite effectively. But that's just kind of like where we stand, right? The other times that you go ahead and swarm are certain Lady Alexandra teams, but that really depends on your BP and the strength of your healer in order to even facilitate the beginning of that. So let's go ahead and just get into the actual like point of this. So if you see like a nightmare team, there's a couple of timings that you really want to be aware of, right? So the main timing that you're looking out for is the Wukong ultimate. Actually, kind of like there's 3 timings. You're looking out for the Wukong ultimate, you're looking out for the Ymrit ultimate, and then you're looking out for the Hotset ultimate. But specifically the cooldown of the Hotset ultimate, because that's where you have the ability to pretty much win if you do everything properly, right? So the first thing that you do, and typically we kind of did this a little bit differently, but originally people would go ahead and drop their tank first, right? And then bait out the Wukong ultimate. That's not necessarily the ideal thing to do. It's changed quite drastically. the first thing that you want to do is always go ahead and drop the Fool, right? The reason for dropping the Fool is because his job is to go ahead and bait out the Wukong ultimate, or if this was like another unit, it would bait out this ultimate, and then it would go bait out the Ymrit ultimate, and then it's going to bait out at least the Hatsut hit. It's not necessarily going to bait out the Hatsut ultimate, because the only thing that's going to bait it out is whenever a unit gets behind Torador, but that's fine. Like, we don't necessarily care about that too much. And just in general, right, for Nightmare comps, these are the main two ultimates that you're looking out for and timing everything based off of. So once the Fool goes and gets targeted by the Ymrit and by the Wukong, he's going to die. It's going to set us up perfectly to drop our next Fool, and then we have the ability, and we should drop our tank. So what's going to happen is this Fool is going to die, and we are going to drop our tank here. This Fool is going to start targeting the tank, and one other really important thing is you really want to be aware of the timing as to when you drop your second tank, because if you drop your second tank early, what's going to happen is the Fool is going to start shielding that tank, and you really want the Fool to just maintain shields on this particular tank. So once the Fool's like over here, or just in general like a decent way away from when you're going to drop your next unit, you're pretty much good to go ahead and do it, right? So we're going to drop our tank now, and what should happen is the Fool will shield this particular tank, and then never particularly swap over to this tank, because he's not going to have a need to. Reason why he's not going to have a need to is because once we get to about like 7 cost, we're going to go ahead and drop one of our healers here, right? So this healer, his entire job is to go ahead and provide sustain to these units. And just in general, pretty much the same concept, right? You're going to drop your healer after you drop your final Fool, and his job is just to keep both of these tanks relatively sustained. The next step is you have an option, right? You can go ahead, and if you're trying to do a basic swarm, you can drop your first Necro at 8 cost. Or you can wait for the 10 cost depending on how the map is looking, right? I'm not in any particular need to drop both of my tanks right now because I'm not taking any meaningful damage, so I'm okay. Then what you do is you drop your double Necros at 10 cost. And here's a little trick. Before the timer hits the full 10, you technically have the ability to double drop units like I just did before it even hits the 10. It gives you like a couple of milliseconds of additional advantage in just placement. So use it to your advantage. A lot of us do it. I think all of us do it. If you're like in the high end of Guild v Guild, it's just kind of like a known thing, right? So what happens here, and the reason why this is important that we have the healer, is the healer is going to provide sustain to both of these tanks as they're taking the damage from Ymrit and taking the damage from the Hatsut. After that, you have another option, right? Depending on how the map is looking, you can drop another healer just for good measure, which I'm going to do just because I personally prefer to. And then you will be set up to go ahead and drop your dogs following this, right? So let's kind of speed this up a second here. Hatsut ult has been baited. There's no remaining ultimates. That means units have been pushing through here, which means that if I were to drop dogs, Hatsut no longer has ultimate. And so the dogs are going to do kind of like this, right? They're going to kind of walk here, walk here, walk here, walk here. Torador is still full of his block, and the dogs are going to path here, hit whatever unit is here, or if hypothetically, like, actually just in general, any unit that's here is going to get hit, and then pass through the map. So that's kind of like the pathing that we see. And this is pretty standard for any Guild v Guild season. The second Hatsut has used her ultimate, you're pretty much good to drop your dogs, because it's the ultimate indicator that Torador's block is fully taken up. So we just go ahead and drop our dogs here. They're going to path through, and we should see them push through and secure the win. There we go. They're going to hit the Ymrit. The Ymrit is down. All of these units are also pathing up, and we have guaranteed a win. So that's the biggest thing when you go against Nightmare comps. Just really paying attention to the Hatsut ultimate, because Hatsut is only going to ult when units get past Torador, which means, hey, his block is full. Your dogs are good to go at that point, right? And your dogs at least typically do enough damage to take out whatever backline units exist and clinch you the win. And even in this particular instance, right, we drop double healers, right? You can exclude dropping the second healer and just offer the double dogs. That means Toreador's block is already full and allows you to just put the dogs through. 6 dogs hitting any unit in the backline, probably going to kill them unless there's a Carnelian. So you're good to go, right? So that's pretty simple. That's just going to be Guild v Guild basics, how to go ahead and develop a swarm. It really just comes down to timings. But overall speaking, the methodology of full into tank, into healer, into necros, that is always going to be standard. That's always going to be the practice that you do. The only variations really come in terms of the overall timings that you do things when you are swarming a team that is not a Nightmare team, right? You can swarm Lady Alexandra Piercer teams if you really wanted to. We do it, right? See ya.